Imagine a story where faith meets fearless leadership, where a woman steps out of the shadows to shape the early church, and where partnership transforms the world. This is the story of Priscilla, a bold teacher, a devoted servant, and a powerhouse in the foundation of Christian faith. It's a story of courage, influence, and partnership that reminds us how God uses ordinary women to do extraordinary things. Priscilla's story is woven through the pages of the New Testament, a story often told alongside her husband, Aquila. But make no mistake, her role was far from ordinary. Together, they were a dynamic team who risked everything for the gospel. Teaching, mentoring, and building the early church in ways that still inspire us today. Priscilla's journey begins in a time of great upheaval. The early Christian movement was growing but facing fierce opposition. Followers of Jesus were scattered, persecuted, and in desperate need of guidance and encouragement. It was in this context that Priscilla and Aquila appear, as refugees forced to leave Rome due to Emperor Claudius' decree expelling all Jews, but rather than be broken by displacement, they became leaders. They settled in Corinth, a bustling, diverse city filled with opportunity and danger. Here Paul met them, and their partnership began. Together, they worked as tent makers, craftsmen weaving tents to support themselves. But their true work was far greater. They opened their home as a center for teaching, fellowship, and spiritual growth. Priscilla was no passive bystander. She stood shoulder to shoulder with Aquila, teaching and mentoring new believers with wisdom and passion. What makes Priscilla's story especially remarkable is the way she stepped into a teaching role in a society where women were often expected to be silent in the church. Yet, the scriptures name her alongside her husband as a teacher, highlighting her knowledge of the faith and her courage to share it publicly. When a young preacher named Apollos arrived in Ephesus, fiery and eloquent, but lacking the full understanding of the gospel, it was Priscilla and Aquila who took him aside. In the privacy of their home, they patiently and lovingly explained the way of God more accurately. This moment shows Priscilla's heart, teaching not for glory, but to build up the church, to bring clarity and truth to those eager to learn. She wasn't content to watch from the sidelines. Priscilla was a teacher who shaped one of the most influential voices in early Christianity. Imagine the strength and humility it took. A woman, in a man's world, quietly yet powerfully guiding the faith journey of others. Priscilla's story also speaks deeply about partnership and sacrifice. She and Aquila faced danger together. Paul writes in his letters about the risks of their ministry, including imprisonment and threats. But they remained steadfast, supporting Paul and others with everything they had. Their home was more than just a shelter. It was a beacon of hope and a hub for spreading the gospel. Priscilla's life challenges us to consider what true discipleship looks like. It's not just belief in private, but bold action in public. It's risking comfort and status for the sake of love and faith. It's about teamwork between spouses, between believers, and between generations. We don't know many personal details about Priscilla, her early life, her feelings, her private struggles, but what we do know shines brightly. She was a woman of deep faith, a teacher of God's word, and a fearless servant. Her name appears first in some New Testament references, suggesting she was a recognized leader. Some scholars even suggest that her original name was Prisca, a common Roman name, and Priscilla was a diminutive foreman affectionate name used by those who knew her well. This little detail hints at the warmth and respect she inspired. Priscilla wasn't just a biblical figure. She was a beloved mentor and friend to many. Priscilla shows us what's possible when women step into their gifts. Maybe you feel small or overlooked sometimes, but her story says this: your knowledge, your courage, your love, they matter. Faith isn't just what you believe, it's what you live out every day. When she and Aquila opened their home to Paul and others, they created a sacred space for learning and growth. What if we too opened our hearts and homes in ways that nurture others' faith journeys? Priscilla's legacy is a call to action, to use our gifts boldly, to teach, to encourage, and to stand firm no matter the cost. Her story also reminds us that leadership looks different for every woman. It's not always about public recognition or titles, but about faithfulness in the everyday moments. Priscilla's faith was quiet but powerful. She was not just the wife of a minister, she was a minister herself. Her teaching helped shape the early church's theology and helped prepare future leaders who would carry the gospel across the world. What a legacy for a woman who could have chosen silence or safety, but instead chose courage and partnership. Priscilla's life invites us to imagine what's as possible when we combine faith with action and partnership with purpose. She and Aquila were more than a couple. They were a ministry team, a family of faith who influenced history by their love, dedication, and teaching. It's a story that empowers women to embrace their callings even when society tries to limit their voices. It's a reminder that God often works through those who are willing to step up, speak out, and serve with humility. Beyond her teaching, Priscilla's hospitality was a radical act of ministry. Opening one's home in the ancient world was not just about providing shelter. It was a profound act of trust and service. In a time when believers were hunted and homes could be raided for gatherings, Priscilla's house was a sanctuary. It was a place where people could come to learn, to be healed, and to be equipped for the challenges ahead. The warmth of her home was a reflection of her heart, welcoming, nurturing, and courageous. In every prayer whispered and every meal shared, Priscilla was building the church. Her partnership with Aquila also teaches us about marriage as a ministry. Together, they balanced work, faith, and risk. They modeled how a marriage can be a vessel for God's work in the world, supporting each other through hardship, encouraging one another's gifts, and standing united when facing opposition. For many women today, Priscilla's story is a beacon showing how faithfulness in relationships can amplify our impact. It reminds us that no one is called to ministry alone. The chill of exile hung heavy in the air as Priscilla and Aquila packed their few belongings, leaving behind the life they knew. The streets of Rome faded into the distance, replaced by the uncertainty of an unfamiliar city and the threat of persecution looming like a dark storm cloud. Yet in the midst of this upheaval, Priscilla's heart was anchored, not in comfort or certainty, but in an unshakable trust in God's timing and purpose. Each step into the unknown was marked by quiet courage, a faith that whispered, "This is not the end, it is the beginning." Like many of us, she faced seasons filled with questions and fear being uprooted from her home. Living in exile, risking imprisonment for the sake of a gospel that was still spreading like wildfire. Yet her spirit remained steadfast. Even when the road grew treacherous, when doors closed and hope seemed distant, Priscilla trusted that God's plan was far greater than her hardships. This trust didn't make the journey easy. It made her brave. It gave her the strength to teach fearlessly, to open her home as a sanctuary, and to step forward when others might have hidden away. She knew, deep within, that even in danger and uncertainty, God was walking beside her. Her story is a living reminder that what often feels like waiting, wandering, or losing ground might actually be God's preparation for something extraordinary, something beyond what we can imagine. Priscilla's life calls us to hold fast to hope, to act with boldness amid the unknown, and to trust that every trial has a purpose. Priscilla's influence rippled far beyond her lifetime. Through her mentorship of Apollos, a preacher whose fiery words ignited faith in countless hearts, she shaped the voice of the early church in profound ways. Her quiet leadership laid the foundation for the gospel's unstoppable spread across the Mediterranean, a legacy that continues in every woman today who teaches, mentors, or serves faithfully and humbly. Priscilla's life challenges us to see the power in faithfulness, even when it seems unseen, unheard, or undervalued. Feeling invisible, think of Priscilla, a woman who faced fear and uncertainty, but chose to rise anyway. She used her gifts to build something lasting. You can do the same. Let her story stir your soul to teach boldly, love fiercely, and serve faithfully. Because like Priscilla, your faith has the power to move mountains and shape history in ways you can't yet see. Thank you for listening. If Priscilla's story touched your heart, share it with the women in your life. Let her courage and faith inspire a new generation to rise and shine. And always remember, God is calling you for such a time as this.